So greetings, friends and followers. This is Nurses Talking. I am Dale Barzi. As always, if you like what you see and hear, subscribe. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Here on Nurses Talking, we speak to nurses anywhere in the world and at any stage in their nursing journey. Today, I'm very, very pleased to welcome Olivia Lemberger. Dr. Lemberger began her nursing career in the Peace Corps as a volunteer in Guinea, West Africa, and she says she obtained her PhD in health sciences from Northern Illinois University, focused her research on the value and impact of nurse innovators working in academic industry and government settings. Olivia was one of 12 inaugural Johnson & Johnson Nurse Innovation Fellows, and she says she is thrilled to work for the American Nurses Association as the innovation scientist. So, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dale. Pleasure to be here.
It is my pleasure to have you and to have a conversation with you. So, why did you become a nurse? What pushed you in that direction?
I was actually introduced to nursing through a book that I read in high school. I read a book. It was a book by Dalton Trumbo called Johnny Got His Gun. And what was interesting is it was about a soldier who was injured and came back and needed care in a hospital. And what was really interesting is that he had lost the ability to communicate because of the severity of his injuries. And so there were moments where he was tapping his head on a pillow, and there were other healthcare providers that thought that he was having seizures. And what was so interesting about this book, it was actually a nurse who realized, after spending a lot of time with the patient, kind of getting to understand the routine and the unique needs of the patient, that he was actually tapping consistently in ways that led her to the conclusion that he was communicating via Morse code by tapping his head into his pillow. And I read this and I just thought, oh my goodness, nursing, to have the ability to be in such close proximity with patients, to have this ability to in some ways see patients in a very, very generous and holistic manner, really excited me to take a deeper dive and learn more. And so it was very serendipitous by reading this book that actually had nothing to do with nursing, but it really opened my eyes to the profession. And then I got more and more interested, but it was that book that inspired me to become a nurse.
Wow, 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 wow. And listen, kudos to that author.
I agree.
And so you became a nurse, but you started as a volunteer in the Peace Corps in Guinea. Did that come about?
So I had always wanted to travel. That was something that was very important to me. And I also wanted to kind of immerse myself in international communities. And so having the skill as a nurse kind of opened my eyes to other ways to practice healthcare and nursing, like in our global health community. So I was a health service volunteer. I spoke French. So there was an opportunity to be in countries that were had some French speaking components. So it was West Africa that I was focused on primarily. And oh my goodness, what a unique experience. Not only to, again, be immersed inside, a community, such a generous community, but also to have the opportunity to learn about healthcare and specifically, nursing practice from experts of their community with very limited resources. So what I think was so profound about my experience, and I actually was only there for 6 months. I did not complete my entire time as a service volunteer. I had to come home early. But what I will say about that 6-month period was that when there aren't, monitors, when there aren't tests to be done, it is you and the patient you're caring for. There's nothing between you. And so it was just this ultimate experience of community, but in a proximity that I've not since experienced, only because of the immense resources that we have here at times. And so that was just a great opportunity, not only to learn how to practice healthcare with limited resources, but also avail myself of the expertise, the generosity, the holistic nature in which care was approached, but just to be able to observe and learn. And what was so interesting, I didn't realize it then, but it was really the first time I learned and witnessed innovation practice in real time, because the healthcare workers that I was alongside with and who were my colleagues were experts in innovation, because again, taking limited resources and using them in the most incredibly insightful ways. For instance, there was a bicycle air pump, a handheld bicycle air pump that was being used as a makeshift nebulizer. And I was trying to understand, what is going on, but every resource had multiple uses.
Yeah.
And so with that mindset, I was really able to understand that connection between innovation and nursing practice.
Yes. And I can get what you're saying. I have been fortunate enough to work in settings where, as you say, they all of the bells and whistles are not necessarily there. And what it does for you is that it heightens your sense of awareness. It heightens your ability, deepens your ability, as you said, to connect and to really figure out what's going on without having to have all of these other things to tell you. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad we share that unique experience. It's lovely.
So what are some of the challenges though? You read this book, you were impressed by this nurse to the point where you said, I need to be a nurse. When you became a nurse though, what challenges did it present for you?
Well, I would say that there are unique opportunities to translate information in a work environment. For instance, I went to nursing school. I had a lot of resources and knowledge that I had learned, but translating that nursing knowledge back into a healthcare environment requires, some different skills and the ability to, again, translate. So I think the role of preceptors is so pivotal, again, to that transition into practice, not only for new grads, but then nurses who are seeking to practice in new environments. The ability for a preceptor to help based on maybe a nurse's unique learning needs. So for instance, I'm a very tactile learner. I like to get my hands on and actually do something. And so I was so fortunate in the sense that the preceptors I had recognized that, and so kind of curtailed my internship or my orientation to involve a lot of those learning modalities. So with that, I feel like the challenge is to ensure that nurses are getting those environments that help them learn in a way to really, again, effectively translate that information. And knowing when there are those barriers or where it becomes overwhelming, I feel like a lot of that goes back to how that information is being translated. So I would say that that's one current challenge. I'd also say another challenge just that I'm really kind of aware of and spending a lot of my time on currently is the need for nurses to be aware about how they are innovatively practicing on a daily basis, but they might not call it innovation. For instance, a lot of times we'll hear the word workaround or, dating myself, the word MacGyvering, right, with the MacGyver show, but people use other words, but they are actually innovating. They're engaging in an innovation process. And so for nurses to have that opportunity to recognize what they're doing and to name it and to understand how the ability to be recognizing patterns, to recognize gaps, to understand that there's something happening here that I need to think about a better way to do this. And nurses do that all the time, every day. That is innovation. Those nurses are innovators. And so ensuring that nurses understand the gravity of their knowledge and expertise and recognizing themselves as the innovators they are is something that I am very passionate about and enjoy spending a lot of time ensuring that transparency around their work is realized.
And your passion comes across in what you have just said.
Jump through the screen, Dale. I'm going to jump through the screen. I'm so excited.
It comes across, and so this is how you have the title innovation scientist.
Yes.
Yeah. As part of the American Nurses Association. So I guess the question I want to ask is within that, within this association, how is this promoted? How is that promoted? And we have this, this is a niche. How is that promoted?
So I will say, it's promoted in many ways. One of the things about innovation, and specifically in innovation scientists, is understanding this gap between discovery and application to really make kind of these finer and finer discernments about innovation and, again, innovation practice. I also look at this role as an innovation scientist as really like a catalyst for innovation insight, galvanizing the interconnectedness that exists between our profession, the other healthcare professionals, the healthcare ecosystem, the global health community, which I feel is almost farther, more entwined than I believe is currently realized, this intertwining and interconnectedness of what we're doing in terms of that innovation and international global community. I also think innovation science really requires kind of a quantum thinking philosophy in which you can hold multiple ideas simultaneously that are often opposing, to really hold space and create space for these multiple views to exist, so that there's considered time and effort into really uncovering all the ways and all the approaches that something could be solved. And I approach a lot of those problem solving moments with a design justice lens. And there's the designjustice.org that has 10 principles around design justice, which really means innovating and designing with and not for communities, in the sense that people in community are the experts, and really understanding that the role of an innovator or an innovation scientist is to observe and uplift and elevate what's already working, and then co-create and co-facilitate solutions, again, with the community to ensure that long-term sustainability and potential scalability as well. And then another component I want to mention is the measurement and metrics around the value and impact of what we're doing, which was part of my dissertation research. There's a great quote by Bill Gates that says, you can achieve incredible progress if you set a goal and find a measure that will drive progress towards that goal. So I feel like that is so important. We need to be measuring our innovative work to be able to quantify. We've got the qualitative stories, we know the impact and value, but to be able to speak in that quantifiable language that is so important, because the environment that we're operating in is a business environment, to be able to speak languages where the language can transfer, and there's clarity around that language. Again, too, science is not about what we know, it's about what we don't know. So really leaning into that space to be able to kind of simultaneously hold the known and unknown and be able to move that boundary forward. And that was actually a quote from one of my mentors, although she doesn't know she's a mentor of mine. She is a theoretical physicist. Her name's Chanda Prescott-Weinstein, and she wrote The Disordered Cosmos, which is another one of my favorite books. But she really kind of encapsulates that lens of the scientific exploration and really wrestling, but being okay and comfortable in that unknown space. And what I want to also say is, like, there's no elevator pitch for this role. I've been very talkative, but I think it's because there are some moments that require you to take the stairs. And so in this space, I'm happy to take the stairs.
Wow. So here's the thing. You, in listening to you, you speak and you think, and from very early on, you think globally. And you recognized innovation in a place where most people, or maybe some people, would not recognize innovation. Here you are with the American Nurses Association in a place where you have all the bells and whistles. How do you think, as we all thinking more globally, and as things like Zoom and all of this allows us to be more global in our practice and outlook, how can we bridge those two things, do you think?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question. Thank you. Thank you for that question. I think a lot of it just comes from an understanding that we need to widen the aperture for our understanding of what is and what could be. And so when I think about, global innovation, I want to mention a great exemplar that came out of Liberia. The nurse is named Yasa Levala, and she innovated the comfort closet because women who are giving birth in Liberia need to present themselves when they come to the hospital with items such as a infant carrier, onesies, some menstrual pads, and not all women and not all families have access to those resources. 50% of the population in Liberia lives below the poverty line. And so Yasa innovated the comfort closet. She ensured that there would be a resource for people giving birth in hospitals to have access to those important resources needed to be able to, again, give birth in the hospital. So it's understanding that maybe from the lens of, here, I live in a suburb of Chicago, and I can walk into a hospital in a clean utility room and I will have access to so many resources. A closet may not seem innovative from my lens. When we apply a global lens and a global understanding to our healthcare ecosystem, we understand that the comfort closet is incredibly innovative, incredibly insightful and important because she recognized a need. And then she did something about it. And that is innovation. And to call that what it is and to recognize that through a lens of design justice is incredibly important and valuable. And so I appreciate your international focus. And I feel like for these global health outcomes to be realized, that perspective of the global community absolutely needs to be front and center at all times.
Yeah. I think we need to really expand our vision. And I'm so glad you articulated that. One of the things that people talk about, actually, some things that they would like to see change within nursing here. What do you think you'd like to see change?
Well, I think I lean into, again, that recognition for nurses to recognize themselves as innovators. I think that would be transformational, not only for the nurses, but for all the patients and the communities interacting with that level of recognition and expertise. I think that something's very interesting is that nursing is absolutely a STEM profession. Whether it's recognized, globally as a STEM profession is something that we're working towards, but I feel like that change is happening. But it's very important to recognize nursing under that STEM umbrella because we are doing, that work. And so I think that that's a direct translation that it's exciting to see the progress we've made in that area. And then I also think too, again, those opportunities to co-create and collaborate with people outside of her profession. I've learned so much. There was a webinar that I came across recently that I thought was so interesting. It was a museum that was taking data about the people that stay at the museum the longest and the people that stay at the museum the shortest. And they realized the people that are kind of walking in and out of the museum are using the bathroom. So what they did is they took that bathroom, that spatial area, to create advertisements translating the reason why people stay the longest for those exhibits that really draw a lot of attention. For them to even realize that these exhibits are here, they may not have come in for that reason, but now they're going to know about them because they've, intersected with the bathroom area. So again, too, it's taking what other spaces, what other professions, what other industries are really using to promote these areas to really kind of drive forward curiosity, drive forward these new ideas. Because that's what innovation is. It's really, the novel and useful applications to meet the needs of individuals and communities. And so when you have these wide range sources of input, the better you are to be able to translate some of these, again, concepts that have worked very well outside of healthcare and bring them in. To really move, again, not only our profession uniquely as nurses forward, but the entire healthcare experience for patients.
Absolutely. So I have another question now. So I am, as I said to you before, I became a nurse in the mid-1970s. This past May makes it 50 years now that I'm a registered nurse. And I think of what advice I would like to give to someone who wants to be a nurse, but I know that the advice that I give now is probably not as deep or as or consuming as it could be, just because my experience started so far back.
Mm.
What do you think you'd say to someone now who wants to be a nurse?
That is such a great question. I would say for somebody that would be thinking about nursing, if you're interested in science and the health of global communities, if you're interested in collaborating and co-creating and being present so that you can generously listen to fully understand the needs of others, you should absolutely be a nurse. So that is what I want to say. But I think part of it is really listening to your inner voice. I would say that has really guided me. I've been a nurse for more than 25 years, really listening to your inner voice, because if you're not deeply aligned with your decisions and your kind of trajectory of your profession, and if you're saying yes to things because of external pressures, or you think it's like it should be the expectation of the time frame, the decisions will not serve you. They will not benefit you. And so one of the exemplars I like to bring up is that I graduated in 1997 with my bachelor's. I did not go back to obtain my PhD until 2017. There was a 20-year gap. And all along, I had professors and people, when are you going back to school? And it did not seem right to me. For some reason, I just had to dig deep to say, I don't know what I want to do yet, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sit in this space. And I sat in it again for 20 years. I mean, I did get my master's before my doctorate, but I will say that I had this moment where I was interacting with a crash cart. I was an emergency room nurse and had the opportunity to be interacting with a crash cart, and learned that it was a nurse, Anita Dorr, who innovated the crash cart. She was an emergency room nurse, the co-founder of the ENA, and was just tired of going back and continually getting supplies over and over. So went and, prototyped this crash cart. And I thought, what else have nurses done that we don't know about? And so with that, I did this huge dive into nurse-led innovation. And then I was ready. And I'm like, this is actually a course of research that I really want to extend. And I want to take this question, what else have nurses done that we don't know about, the whole way through? And that's what I did my PhD around. And so it was the right time for me. So again, listening to that inner voice, I go back to that. Yeah. And being deeply, deeply aligned with the decisions that you make for yourself, and not for anyone else or for any other expectations. That would be my advice, because I feel like that has served me so well.
That's awesome. And that question, as you pose that question, what have nurses done that we don't know about? That's huge, because we take it for granted. We take our own innovations for granted.
Yes.
As you said, we just use words like workaround or something, and think, well, that's just our everyday thing.
Yes. Dale, I'm excited to share. So I also had the opportunity, I was one of the inaugural 12 Johnson & Johnson Nurse Innovation Fellows. And they posed us a question to say, what do you think you want to do to really advance innovation, or what are your ideas around how we could, bring more nurses in this space and really highlight the work of nurses? So I innovated the Nurse Innovator Index, and this is an open access repository. It's a website that you can access, and there currently are it's at 406 exemplars of nurses who have innovated, and maybe they've innovated processes or products or measurements or around health equity. There's a section around specifically health equity. So I wanted a repository to say, who are the nurses that are in this space, nurse innovators, nurse entrepreneurs, and nurse scientists? What are the work that they are doing, so you can quickly link on to their specific websites and links so you can learn more information about them. But it's basically a space where the expertise in innovative work has convened in a way that provides a very quick mechanism for nurses and people outside of our profession to be able to access this information. So that's been an absolute joy. It launched in 22. And since then I've been able to present, at international conferences, both inside and outside of nursing, which has been great. There was a summer on biotech course at MIT, so I got to present the index to students there. It's just been an absolute delight to see nurses get so excited about the work that nurses are doing, but then also to see the excitement from people outside of nursing to recognize nurses as leaders in this space as well.
Yeah, the light bulb goes on and they go, oh, those are nests.
Yes. Very exciting.
Well, while we're talking about it, I'd just like to say that we can put links in the description box. So for anyone who's looking, there'll be links.
Yes, absolutely.
So, question for you. You are so innovative and so the word I'm looking for, committed. You're so committed to this and so passionate about it. I can see it as something that is consuming. What do you do to take care of you?
Oh, yeah, that's such a great question. I am inspired by other individuals who kind of step into those spaces that they don't understand. And so I take care of myself by I read a lot. I mean, I am an avid reader. That's something that I feel is self-care because it's a way for me to constantly learn. So each week I usually have about 5 books that I'm rotating. And it's something that I do for myself because when we're really looking to translate that quantum thinking, how do you think multiple ideas simultaneously? One way that I've really been able to, elevate that ability is by reading multiple books at the same time. And so I find these strategies kind of in my off time to really help and ignite the work that I'm doing. I love being in community with people. I'd say part of my self-care is really immersing myself in communities. And then really ensuring that I also have the things that feed my soul, such as my family, getting together with my friends, laughter. I love to laugh. I love to find the positive humor in everything. I feel like as a nurse, we all do that, right? But I also think, again, that self-care piece is really important because, there are so many ways in which you can be drained, right? Emotionally, intellectually, spiritually. So finding those opportunities to be present and hold space for your own individual needs is incredibly important and definitely needs to be prioritized. And so I applaud you for asking that question because I think that that's something that everyone is balancing. But I feel like there are ways to kind of have these opportunities for synergy to occur between the things that you're doing while you're engaged in work, but then also the things that you engage in outside of work as well, and finding the ways that they can, come together in those points of intersection that can be really inspiring, creative, meaningful as well.
Awesome. Olivia, I can't even begin to tell you how much I have enjoyed this conversation with you. It has been so enlightening, so insightful. Thank you so very much for this. Before we go, any gem you'd like to leave us with?
I would just like to say that for the nurses that are engaged in the opportunity to learn more about not only the areas that they're interested in, but really what the people that they're interacting with in the community or their patients are interested in. Because when you get to a point where you're saying, this can be done better, or I haven't met the needs of the patient I'm caring for because X, Y, and Z, that is that window of opportunity, that window of opportunity, really innovate. And so kind of having that lens of how can I not only bring an idea forward so I can maybe make, the work that I'm doing more efficient for my own needs, but also for the needs of the patient, the community, and then we'll extend to that global healthcare community as well. So I guess I would like to leave it with, when there are opportunities that present themselves, please, please, please be open to them, to consider what might be. And there's just this beautiful quote that I'd like to end on by Harriet Tubman. She said, who was also a nurse, and not only a nurse, but a nurse innovator. Harriet Tubman innovated the Tubman Home for the Aged in 1908, which provided food, shelter, and clothing for people in her community. So Harriet Tubman, a nurse innovator. But she said, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the perseverance to reach for the stars and change the world.
And change the world. And that, I couldn't have said it better. On that note, thank you so very, very, very much for this. And for everyone who's listening, join us next time as we introduce to you another nurse from somewhere around the world to the world. Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you, Dale. And thank you for the innovative work that you're doing to bring these stories to the larger audience. I so appreciate you and am honored to be here. So thank you again.
My pleasure. My absolute pleasure.